Let's build a floor, and we're going to put it on top of our pier and beam foundation. I'm going to take this plywood off the top. We'll talk about some terminology. These are joists running across. You can see they have been supported on the pier and beam foundation. In between we have blocking, and on either end we have our rim joists. Cutting out our measuring tape over here, let's take a look at a real one. You'll notice there's black and red marks. The black ones correspond with feet, and the red ones are every 16 inches. They correspond with 16-inch on-center markings. Now, here's a real 2x6. Let's find all of our small scale 2x6s. And we're going to check to see if any of them have a crown. Now this example is very dramatic. None of them will be this bad, but you can see that curvature there. It's important to know which boards have that. Now, sometimes it's going to be very subtle. I'm just drawing an arrow pointing away from the crown. The crown is the highest spot. Let's clamp together two 2x6s. These are going to be our rim joists, and we're going to create markings on them that will allow us to line up all of our other joists. You can see I made a mark on the middle of this joist, on its edge, and that's going to really help us line it up. And now I'm taking my joist and drawing the edges. Now we need these markings on both of our rim joists. So in a moment I'm going to take a square and we're going to transfer the markings up. Pay attention to the bottom of your square so it's lined up against your lumber, and now you're going to make your markings. Now we do not want to damage a really nice table, so I happen to put down a sacrificial board because look, as you cut through you might cut into the table. So I've clamped that board to the table, and now I have two spring clamps, 1 and 2, and those are holding my fence in place. Alrighty, now before we start going, let's take our two trim boards and clamp them and set them off to the side so we do not cut them. Oh, actually we'll need them one more time. Here, line them up with one of our boards and make a mark. We're going to cut that much off. By putting the clamp there, we can repeatedly make the same cut without having to measure each time. Now taking our rim joists, I'm going to set them down. We're going to assemble it now and make sure the arrow is pointing down on all of these. Okay, so each time we're adding a joist, we're going to make sure that arrow is pointing down. I recommend doing a test fit before you start gluing them. Our floor is framed, and now we can take it over to our pier and beam foundation. Okay, the distance from one beam to another along this joist is the span. And you can see if the joist does not have enough strength, it could flex. So to prevent that, I'm going to sister or put a second board right next to that one, so it'll have a double-sized joist. Another weakness could potentially be the joists moving side to side laterally. So to prevent that, we can do something called blocking. Okay, you don't want those joists twisting. Make sure that they're flush. You push them right down. We're going to put plywood on top, and you don't want any bumps to show through. Scribing marks onto my beams. You're going to have to act fast on this one. Okay, we're almost done now. I'm going to use a cereal box over here to create some plywood. And I'm using my large framing square, using my measuring tape to mark down to 4 feet. Generally when you buy plywood, it's in 4-foot by 8-foot sheets. So this long side should be 8 feet long, marking both sides. Now, since you already have this made, you might as well trace it and make a couple. Since we created 4-foot by 8-foot sheets, 2 of them should fit neatly on top because our frame was 8-foot by 8-foot. Now I want to be able to give the viewer the ability to look through like X-ray vision. So I've just left one, and I've cut also a little window in it. Alright, we finished the floor. I'm Mr. Barak, Tiny Materials, Big Skills. See y'all next week where we tackle the walls.